Exodus 10:1 through 11:10. Devotional focus verse. And that which thou mayest tell in the ears of thy son and of thy son's son, what things I have wrought in Egypt, and by signs which I have done among them, that ye may know how that I am the Lord. Exodus 10:2. The pages of the scrapbook were yellowed and a bit tattered around the edges, but each page held a wealth of memories. I studied the precious old photos that chronicled our family's history. There was my dad as a young man, with hair, on skis. That brought back memories of childhood trips to Mount Hood and skimming down the slope on the back of my dad's skis, my arms tight around his waist. There was my uncle smiling at the camera from behind the typewriter. He's been in heaven for so many years now that I can hardly picture his face, but I do remember his deep laugh, his love for God, and saying goodbye to him as he left for his final missionary trip to Africa. And that round-faced little toddler in a shepherd's robe, clutching his stuffed lamb. Could that really be my brother, the competent, respected building contractor? I clearly remember him singing, "I Wish I Could Have Been a Shepherd," in the Sunday school program, even though I was only a child myself at the time. Think of the memories Moses could have related. As a participant in one of the greatest dramas in biblical history, Moses witnessed events that many have heard of, but very few actually saw. In our focus verse, God told Moses that he wanted him to tell his son and his son's sons about the mighty things God had wrought in Egypt, so that generations to come would know that God is the Lord of all. In essence, God was saying, take a mental snapshot, Moses. Preserve this event for those who will follow after you. Do not let them forget. Moses did just that, and we see throughout the Old Testament how the children of Israel were reminded time after time of God's deliverance from Egypt. Has God blessed you with memories of what He has done in your life? Can you recount times when the Lord Himself has intervened in your personal history? It is vital for us to tell what the Lord has done for us in our past and what He is doing for us now. The stories we relate and how we present them will help shape the next generation's belief in God and knowledge of what He can do. Like beloved snapshots in an old family album, our memories of how God has worked in our lives are meant to be shared. Let us pass them on, that they may inspire and refresh those who come behind us. Background information. The children of Israel were nearing the end of their bondage as Egyptian slaves. God had appointed Moses to lead them out of Egypt, and He sent plagues on the Egyptians because of Pharaoh's refusal to let the children of Israel go. 7 plagues preceded today's text, with each plague bringing more devastation to the land of Egypt. The hardening of Pharaoh's heart is mentioned 20 times in chapters 4 through 11, Exodus 9:16 and 17, and Romans 9:15 through 18 tell us that God raised up this particular Pharaoh to show the world the power of God. Pharaoh had exalted himself among the people, and God used the plagues to demonstrate how powerless Pharaoh really was when confronted by the true God. The children of Israel were a valuable asset to the Egyptians, and Pharaoh was unwilling to let go of such a resource. Their free labor had built Egypt's great cities. By the time the 8th plague came, Egypt had already suffered incredible damage, yet Pharaoh still refused to let the Israelites go. Moses often told Pharaoh ahead of time what the plague would be, giving ample warning of the results to come if Pharaoh refused to give in. Pharaoh first tried to compromise with Moses by offering to let only the men go. Later he offered to let all the people go if they would leave their livestock behind. However, his attempts to negotiate failed. When the plague of locusts engulfed the land, Pharaoh quickly called for Moses and Aaron to come and entreat the Lord to take away the locusts. God hearkened to the prayers of Moses and Aaron, just as he had after each preceding plague, showing God's mercy even toward Pharaoh. Of all the plagues, the plague of darkness was the biggest insult to Egypt's many gods. Ra, the sun god and chief of all the Egyptian gods, was proved powerless to end the oppressive darkness. However, the true God of heaven made sure that his children, the Israelites, had light in their dwellings. God was proving to the Egyptians that he alone is the true God. In Exodus 11, God outlined the final plague to Moses. This plague would cause Pharaoh to beg the children of Israel to leave Egypt. God told Moses to have the Israelites ask the Egyptian people for silver and gold. By this time, the Egyptians had a great fear of Moses and the children of Israel, and they were more than willing to give the Israelites whatever they wanted. The death of all the firstborn males in Egypt, including Pharaoh's son, would be the final blow to Pharaoh's egotistical attitude that he was above God. Conclusion: our life experiences will not be like those of Moses, but they are unique and they matter. What were the turning points in your life? Where did you see God work? What is he doing for you right now? Pass it on. The stories you share today may be the building blocks for someone's faith tomorrow.
Exodus chapter 10. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart, and the heart of his servants, that I might show these my signs before him. And that thou mayest tell in the ears of thy son, and of thy son's son, what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that ye may know how that I am the Lord. And Moses and Aaron came in unto Pharaoh, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, How long wilt thou refuse to humble thyself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow will I bring the locusts into thy coast. And they shall cover the face of the earth, that one cannot be able to see the earth, and they shall eat the residue of that which is escaped, which remaineth unto you from the hail, and shall eat every tree which groweth for you out of the field. And they shall fill thy houses, and the houses of all thy servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither thy fathers, nor thy fathers' fathers have seen, since the day that they were upon the earth unto this day. And he turned himself, and went out from Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's servants said unto him, How long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? And Moses and Aaron were brought again unto Pharaoh, and he said unto them, Go, serve the Lord your God, but who are they that shall go? And Moses said, We will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds will we go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. And he said unto them, Let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go, and your little ones, look to it, for evil is before you. Not so, go now ye that are men, and serve the Lord, for that ye did desire. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb of the land, even all that the hail hath left. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day, and all that night, and when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. And the locust went up over all the land of Egypt, and rested in all the coasts of Egypt, very grievous were they, before them there were no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened, and they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left, and there remained not any green thing in the trees, or in the herbs of the field, through all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your God, and against you. Now therefore forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God, that he may take away from me this death only. And he went out from Pharaoh, and entreated the Lord. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts, and cast them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the coast of Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called unto Moses, and said, Go ye, serve the Lord, only let your flocks and your herds be stayed, let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, Thou must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice unto the Lord our God. Our cattle also shall go with us, there shall not an hoof be left behind, for thereof must we take to serve the Lord our God, and we know not with what we must serve the Lord, until we come thither. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said unto him, Get thee from me, take heed to thyself, see my face no more, for in that day thou seest my face thou shalt die. And Moses said, Thou hast spoken well, I will see thy face again no more. Exodus chapter 11. And the Lord said unto Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh, and upon Egypt, afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, About midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt. And all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And all these thy servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, and all the people that follow thee, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land.